Hi, everybody. Welcome to English Digest. I'm Stephanie.
And I'm Tom.
Hey, we're going to rent a car, Tom. At
Great.
least we're going to talk about renting a car for the weekend. Have you done that here in Taiwan before?
As a matter of fact, I have, but it's been many years because my wife and I bought our own car many years ago. But in the past, when, people came to visit and stuff like that, and we wanted to go down to Hualien or something, it was a good idea to rent a car. It just gives you more freedom.
It does, especially if you're not in, just around Taipei, checking things out here. I've noticed that when I go south, it's a little bit harder. The mass transportation isn't as frequent or as plentiful either. So, yeah, having a car would be really convenient. I have not rented a car here in Taiwan, but because I have some friends with cars, so we're okay. But when I needed a car and I lived in New York City, we would rent a car at least once a month. Yeah, at least once a month. I'd rent a car to go down to D.C. or go to Boston or go to Philadelphia. And so we got used to renting a car. It's kind of nice because you don't have to pay car insurance every month, which is expensive in the United States at least. But we're going to talk about some of the words we use. I'm sure we're going to have some listeners who will one day be in an English-speaking country and need to rent a car. Do you know what, though? When I was in... where was I? I was in England a couple years ago, and we were renting a car there. I was with a friend of mine, and we ran into some Chinese-speaking tourists who weren't understanding anything, and I got the chance to help them. Funny. So
Great.
Let's get started. So our listeners will be more confident if they need to rent a car in an English-speaking country.
Hi, I'm interested in renting a car from your agency. Could you assist me?
Certainly. I just need to clarify a few things before I make a recommendation. How many days will you need the vehicle? We offer daily and weekly rates.
I probably won't qualify for the weekly rate. I reckon I only need it from today until Monday.
Okay, that's 4 days. Now, did you have a certain price range in mind?
Not really. I'm not on a tight budget, but I'm not looking to break the bank either.
Got it. Do you have any manufacturers or preferences in mind?
I would like a luxury car with low mileage. I wouldn't mind renting an Audi if you have any of their recent models available at an affordable price.
I'm sorry, but our establishment does not have a partnership with Audi. However, we do have a special deal on Volkswagen convertibles at the moment. They are available in lime green, gray, and black.
What is the pricing?
Let me calculate that for you. It would cost 2,300 NT dollars per day. So it would be 9,200 NT dollars in total.
Does that include car insurance, or would there be an additional charge?
That would cover our basic insurance package. However, collision insurance would cost a bit extra. We aim to be transparent, so everything is in our rental agreement.
Would you mind going through the rental agreement with me?
Certainly. Let's take a seat at that table, and we can review it together.
Okay, let's talk about the contents of today's lesson, everybody. We are renting a vehicle for the weekend. A vehicle is any kind of motorized mode of transportation that you drive, like a car or a truck. In this particular case, though, Alex is interested in renting a car. So Alex begins the conversation and says, "Hi, I'm interested in renting a car from your agency." So agency, of course, is a place where you rent a car. We have other agencies like a travel agency or an advertising agency.
A modeling agency.
Indeed, this is a place where you go to make some arrangements to have something done. A modeling agency would, of course, have models if you're putting on a show or if you're, putting together a catalog of your clothing line.
Yeah.
You need to have some models for that. But in this particular case, is if you want to rent a car, you go to a car rental agency. And in the U.S., some of the more famous ones are, Avis, Hertz, there's Budget.
Dollar.
And is it Enterprise?
Enterprise with an E, yeah.
Yeah, that's another one. That's the one we rented from a couple of times during our last trips to the U.S. But yeah, that's what Alex wants to do. He wants to rent a car, and he has a question for Beth. Could you assist me? Could you help me out?
Yeah, and she says certainly she's happy to do that. She just wants to clarify a few things. If you clarify something, you make it clearer to somebody. Or maybe you don't understand someone's question, so you ask for some clarification. Now, here she wants to clarify a few things before she goes ahead and makes a recommendation to this customer, whose name is Alex. So if you make a recommendation, it just means you advise or suggest someone to do something, or maybe to try something. Maybe you have experience with a particular agency or car rental agency, and you think, I think you should try these people. Or maybe she thinks one particular line of cars is better than another. I know here in the dialogue they used manufacturers, but we probably talk about car companies particularly, or what line of cars do you offer?
Or what make?
What make is the car? Yeah, you'll often hear people say make and model of a car. So she wants to know also how many days this customer will need the vehicle. And if you go to these rental agencies, they often have different offers. Maybe there's a special that week. They'll have weekly rates. They'll have daily rates. I've even seen some agencies offer monthly rates. So she just wants to know what exactly he's looking for.
Exactly. So, yeah, does he need it just for the day? Or does he need it for 2 or more days? Or for a full week or something like that? And Alex says, well, I probably won't qualify for the weekly rate. Okay, the weekly rate, of course, would be for 7 days. And he says he won't qualify for that. So I guess he needs the car for less than 1 week. And he says, I reckon I only need it from today until Monday. So reckon here is a verb. That just means you think this is the case. You're guessing this is the case. We don't really use this word too often. When I hear people say reckon, I tend to think of working class people. I reckon that we'll arrive at the party at 7 o'clock tonight.
And it's not just working class for me, Tom. It's more the South. When I hear reckon, I think of cowboys or Texas or old movies, cowboy movies that were made, like 30, 40 years ago. The cowboys would often say, I reckon, ma'am, that you're right. And they'd have that cute accent. I've never used reckon myself, but you should know what it is because you'll hear it in movies and TV shows. It just means you're going to, establish something maybe by an opinion that you have. Maybe you don't have solid facts, but you're going to conclude something based on some information you have. So he reckons he'll only need it from today until Monday. So he figures, you could also say that, well, I figure I'll only need it from today until Monday, or I estimate I'll only need it. I would probably use the verb figure here, but you should learn this word reckon. Again, it's a verb. So Beth goes, okay, that's 4 days. Now, do you have a certain price range in mind? As most of you know, there are cheaper cars and more expensive cars. And of course, the less expensive cars are cheaper to rent, which makes sense. So he says, not really. I'm not on a tight budget. A tight budget means you don't have a lot of money to spend. But he says, I'm not looking to break the bank either. So he's not looking for the least expensive car, the cheapest car they offer. But he doesn't want to, rent the most expensive car either. If you're looking to break the bank, it just means you want to spend as much as you can. Let's not break the bank. Let's not order the most expensive item on the menu. Maybe just something mid-range, and that's kind of what she's offering him.
Yeah, we often use that phrase, break the bank, in the negative. Oh, this won't break the bank for you. Okay, it's not going to be too expensive. And in this particular case, he just kind of wants a mid-range car.
Sure.
Something not too expensive, not too cheap. And Beth says, got it, I understand. Do you have any manufacturers or preferences in mind? What make of car, what brand of car would you like to rent? And do you have any other kinds of preferences? Would you like, say, an SUV or a compact car or a hatchback or something like that?
Yeah. Oh, yeah, there are lots of different kinds of cars. Well, preferences, we have preferences in everything, don't we? A preference is something that you like better than another choice in a similar category. For example, some people have preferences as to what kind of exercise they like to do. Some people like to run and jog. Other people like to bike, go cycling, or some people just like to go to the gym and lift weights. So there are different preferences that people have. So it's a greater liking for one thing than another, something that you choose when you have different choices in front of you.
You'll see preferences mostly in apps these days, or computer programs. You set your preferences. I'd like to have, a black screen with white text. I would like this sort of ringtone and stuff like that. Those are your preferences. And that, of course, is from the verb to prefer. What sort of features do you prefer? And Alex says, well, I would like a luxury car with low mileage. A luxury car is a nice car, an expensive car that's comfortable. And mileage here just refers to how many miles are on the car, how many miles have accumulated on the car since they started driving it. So, yeah, it might have high mileage. Oh, this car has been rented a lot, has been driven all over the country, whereas this other car has low mileage. It's pretty new, and it has only been rented a couple of times. So that's the kind of car he wants, a car that has not been driven that much. Maybe he thinks it will have fewer problems. And he says, I wouldn't mind renting an Audi if you have any of their recent models available at an affordable price. Now, this is very nice of the German auto manufacturer Audi to name a car after a small town in Taiwan. Okay, Audi, of course, is over there by Fulong. So, of course, if I were to rent a car, I'd want to rent an Audi myself.
Oh, really? Yeah, I'm sure that's not where they got their name, but that's fun. Yeah, he wants a car that is pretty new. I've never asked for that myself. I think that's an interesting request. But Audis are very expensive, very nice cars. I've never rented an Audi, but I would love to have one. That sounds really nice. She says, I'm sorry, but our establishment does not have a partnership with that particular company. So if you are talking about an establishment, typically we use establish to talk about setting up some sort of organization or group. But here, establishment as a noun is used just to represent any sort of business organization. It could be a public institution or a private institution. But she could just as simply say, but our company does not have a partnership with Audi. But establishment, you should get to know this word, especially if you're taking the TOEIC test. It's a word you'll hear often in business. So, yeah, that's a very fine establishment. That's a very fine company, or it could be a restaurant even. It just depends what you're talking about. Now, if you have a partnership, what does that mean, Tom?
They're working together.
Yeah.
So maybe Audi or some other car manufacturer thinks that people will know more about their cars if they can rent them through a certain rental agency. So maybe, say, Chevrolet or Toyota or something will give them a special deal on cars. So people will rent their cars and people will know about them. And then Toyota or Chevrolet will sell more cars as a result. So maybe they'll have some sort of partnership. But hey, Audi does not need that kind of partnership. They sell enough cars anyway, so they don't have this kind of relationship or partnership. And then Beth goes on to say, however, we do have a special deal on Volkswagen convertibles at the moment. That's another German car manufacturer. A convertible is a car in which you can take the top down so it's open air if you like driving that way.
Yeah, sounds really nice. That's the kind of car I would love to rent, is a convertible.
Not good for Taipei, though. It rains a lot.
No, I was just going to say not in Taiwan, though, because, wow, it can just start pouring at any moment. They're available in different colors. You could get lime green, which is a really bright, kind of a shocking green color. They also have gray and black. If you're going to get a convertible, you might as well get a really, I don't know, it's like splashy color, something that's really fun, like green or red, something that people look at. So he asks her, what is the pricing? So how are they pricing this particular convertible? And then she says she'll calculate it for him, meaning she'll do the math and figure out how much it would cost per day and then for the 4 days in total, and that's what she goes ahead and does. So it's 2,300 NT dollars a day and 9,200 NT dollars in total for the 4 days. Yes, we typically break those out for you guys, but I want to encourage the listeners to try and start learning how to say 2,300 instead of 2,300 NT dollars, because a lot of people in America, it's faster for us to say 2,300 than 2,300. So it would be good to practice a little bit on that particular way of saying numbers. So Alex then wants to talk about kind of the most expensive part of renting a car, and that's the car insurance for me.
It's important. There's always a chance you're going to have some trouble, an accident or something like that. So you do need insurance. So yeah, does that price include car insurance, or would there be an additional charge? Do I have to pay extra for that? Beth says, well, that would cover our basic insurance package. So there is some insurance, but she goes on to say, however, collision insurance would cost a bit extra. Collision, that refers to when things bump into each other. Hey, there was a collision at the intersection of Maple Street and First Avenue. So yeah, take another route there. But in this particular case, collision insurance refers to insurance that will cover you if you get into some kind of collision, like bumping into another car or into a tree or maybe even a dog crossing the road. Who knows?
Maybe you have a serious car crash. So my advice to anybody going to a country where you drive on the opposite side of the road is to get the best insurance they offer. That was a good decision that my friend made when we were in England, for sure. So yeah, collision or crash, they're similar words. There was a car accident. There was a collision. Collision is a more, I think, formal term than just a car crash. They had a collision. So yeah, look at the types of insurance they offer and make sure that you are fully covered.
Indeed, and Alex then has a question. Well, would you mind going through the rental agreement with me? We need to look at the agreement, at the contract, and Beth says, certainly. Let's take a seat at that table. Let's sit down and we can review it together. And that's what we'll do in our next lesson. But right now, everybody, we're going to listen to our Chinese teacher.
大家好，我是派老师。今天讲解的是7月份 Unit4 Renting a Vehicle for the Weekend。连续2天，我们一起进一步了解多益测验。第一天是一篇长对话，有2位主角，男性顾客 Alex 和租车公司的女性业务代表 Beth。这一类商场当中的对话，在多益的听力测验其实很常见。我们现在一起按照时间的先后顺序看看这段对话。顾客 Alex 首先表达来意，他说 Hi, I'm interested in renting a car from your agency. Could you assist me? 请注意 I'm interested in renting a car. 我想租车。当然，我们也可以说 I would like to rent a car. 接着 Beth 回答 Certainly, I just need to clarify a few things. 请同学把 clarify a few things 画起来，有几件事情我想要先厘清。后来呢 Beth 就介绍了他们的费率方案。We offer daily and weekly rates. 有日租型，也有周租型。请同学把 rates 画起来。rates 就是费率。那 Alex 呢，就回答 I probably won't qualify for the weekly rate. 他并不打算要租一整个礼拜。Beth 的回答是 OK, that's 4 days. 所以你只打算租4天。 Now, did you have a certain price range in mind? 请同学特别把 price range 画起来。其实这也是在问别人，那你的预算是多少？你希望能够接受的价格是什么？ What do you have in mind? 好 ，Alice 则回答 Not really, I'm not on a tight budget. 后面呢 ，Alice 回答说，其实她预算并不紧 ，Not on a tight budget， 请画起来。But I'm not going to, but I'm not looking to.I'm not looking to break the bank. 也请同学把 break the bank 画起来，意思就是他也不想要花很多钱买一样东西。那我们可以说 eating at a fancy restaurant once in a while won't break the bank. Won't break the bank. 好，所以偶尔呢去高级餐厅吃东西，其实呢并不至于让你呢花很多很多很多的钱。好的。那 Beth 回复就是 Got it. Do you have any manufacturers or preferences in mind? 那请同学呢把 Do you have in mind 画起来，意思就是你心中有没有什么想法？这边是在问他，那对于汽车的制造商，你有没有什么样子的想法？你想要哪一家的车子？ Alex 的回答呢是说 I would like a luxury car with low mileage.所以他希望里程数低一点的豪华车。那当然，他的品牌偏好是 Audi。If you have any of their recent models available at an affordable price， 那请同学把这个 models 画起来，这边指的呢是车款。那再把 at an affordable price 也画起来，就价格呢是我负担得起的。那 Beth 知道顾客想要的是 Audi， 可是他说I'm sorry, but our establishment does not have a partnership with Audi. 请同学把这个 establishment 画起来。这边呢，所指的是企业。当然，我们也可以指像公家机关，但这里指的呢，就是我们公司。我们公司呢，和奥迪并没有合作。However, we do have a special deal on Volkswagen convertibles at the moment.好，请同学把 have a special deal on Volkswagen 画起来。他们针对福斯的车子呢有优惠方案。再接着 Alice 就进一步的问价格咯 What is the pricing？ 那 Beth 就告诉他4天总共呢租车的金额是9200。那 Alice 提到价格了，他很聪明，也需要厘清到底总共花费是多少。Does that include car insurance, or would there be an additional charge? 你刚刚说的9200有没有包括车险？那会不会有其他额外的费用呢？ Beth 的回答是 That would cover our basic insurance package. 请同学把 cover 画起来。这里的 cover 指的就是包含了基本的车险。However, collision insurance would cost a bit extra.请同学注意 collision 这个单字 collision 是名词，来自于 collide 这个动词。collide 呢就是撞击的意思。那我们怎么用呢？老师给大家一个例句 The train collided with the truck stalled at the crossing。 那我们知道说，其实在铁路的平交道有时候会发生事故，相当危险。这个例句就说火车在平交道和卡车撞上了。好，那在后面 Alice 她就希望能够呢承租这个车子，所以接下来她就说 Would you mind going through the rental agreement with me？ 可不可以带我看一下合约？好的，以上是我们针对多益课程第1天的讲解，谢谢大家。
We're going to take a quick break. Stay tuned. We'll be right back. Okay, guys, welcome back. It's time to look at some useful expressions. This first group is just about how to recommend something, so recommendations. The first one is, I'd suggest this model. So if you want to offer someone a suggestion or recommendation, you can simply use that verb. I suggest this model. Now, suggest is kind of a tricky verb, as is recommend, so be careful. You'll need the subjunctive tense, which is kind of tricky. So make sure you review that. I'd suggest this model. I suggest you go now. It's not a normal verb. So suggest and recommend, check into that. Again, subjunctive text. It's the subjunctive tense. So why would you suggest this model? Well, it's affordable. That's always a good reason. And it rides smoothly, meaning it doesn't have a bumpy ride.
Yeah, sometimes we don't really know which model we'd like to rent, so we want a recommendation. And here number 2 says, I recommend doing your own research before you speak to a salesperson. So yeah, sometimes if you're going to buy something, you might want to do some research online first before you actually talk to the salesperson to make sure that they don't try to sell you something that you don't need.
And notice here that I recommend is followed by the gerund form, verb ing. And that's correct. I recommend doing your own research or renting this model. Yeah. It's definitely good to do your own research before you just go to the rental agency. Number 3, I wouldn't advise getting a sports car because they are expensive and often only have 2 seats. There's no room for passengers or much luggage or baggage. Again, advise is one of the tricky verbs, so you'll need to use that subjunctive tense. Now, discussion question. Tom, let me ask you first. Imagine that you are renting a car. What details would be important to you?
Well, of course, gas mileage is one consideration. Not the mileage we were talking about in the conversation earlier. Gas mileage or fuel economy would be important because if I'm going to rent a car in the United States or Canada, I'm going to be expecting to drive long distances, and you're going to use a lot of gasoline that way. How about for you?
For me, I just need enough room for the number of people I plan on taking with me around in the car. I usually, when I go home to see my family, I rent a car at the airport, and I have enough space for at least 4 people because I like to take my nieces and nephews around and my sisters. So, yeah, there are different things that people consider important. Day 2, we're going to check out the details of that rental agreement. Which is kind of tough English because it's more
technical.
Well, it's got legal language in it, which is tougher for people, even for native speakers. But hurry back for that. Day 2 will be important. That's all the time we have, Tom. We got to sign off. So for English Digest, I'm Stephanie.
And I'm Tom. Goodbye.
Bye.